Welcome back. In today's episode of Biz China's 360 series, we take a look at the country's 30-year anniversary of reform and opening up. This installment will focus on the extraordinary development of China's private economy in the past 3 decades. Recognized as an indispensable component of the country's market economy, the private sector now comprises 60% of the country's total number of companies. But 30 years ago, this sector was all but non-existent in China. Here's our reporter, Zheng Junfeng.
Mr. Huang is the owner of a medium-sized porcelain workshop, where he and his fellow workers craft and paint all these beautiful pieces by hand. He then sells them all over the country and to many parts of the world. Mr. Huang says that when he was younger, he never dreamed of doing this job that he loves and being able to own his own company.
In the 70s, I was a teacher at a middle school. I taught math and painting.
In the first 30 years after New China was founded in 1949, the country was dominated by the state-owned economy. People in the private business were considered to be practicing capitalism, which was prohibited. But things began to change in 1978, when party leaders began re-examining the structure of ownership. 4 years later, reform policy progressed with an important change in the Chinese constitution. The private sector was no longer denounced as an evil of capitalism, but was regarded as a necessary supplement to the public economy. Reform policy was so groundbreaking that its effect was immediately felt in Liling. In 1982, Mr. Huang made a decision that changed his life forever. He left his job as a school teacher and became a designer at a local porcelain factory.
I was among the first batch of people to jump into the commercial waters. I resigned from my teacher's job.
During the early 80s and 90s, tens of thousands of intellectuals across China, typically school teachers like Mr. Huang, left their stable jobs or so-called iron rice bowls. They chose to pursue their own dreams and wealth by plunging into the commercial sea.
With the support of the reform policy, China's private economy experienced phenomenal growth during the 1980s. Most importantly, people's attitudes towards private entrepreneurs also changed. They realized that there is nothing wrong about earning a better life through hard work.
In 2000, Mr. Huang started his own company. He recruited some laid-off workers from failed local state-owned factories and had much success. In fact, the private economy has become so strong in Liling that it represents more than 90% of its local GDP. This percentage only can be matched by export-powered cities along China's eastern and southern coastal line. This is the first and only customs office at county level in China's Midwest region. Local government understands its importance to help promote local private businesses' export and help them grow sustainably.
The Liling government recognizes the great importance of our private economy, ranging from porcelain, fireworks and suitcase production. Since many of them target the overseas market, we tried our best efforts and set up this customs office, which can cut their export costs and make their clearance much easier.
Within 30 years, the private economy had gone from being worth nothing to being worth 10 trillion yuan in 2007, representing 40% of the national industrial output. This is more than that of the public sector and international sector. The private sector has generated 66% of the country's patents and 82% of the new products over the past 20 years, proving it's more innovative. It also creates 6 million new jobs each year, about 75% of the annual total. Those figures are something nobody expected 30 years ago.
The private sector was initially recognized as a supplement to the state-owned economy, and now is an important component of the socialist market economy. As the opening and reform policies continue, the private sector will only get more important in China's overall economy.
Entrepreneurs here say with their own private companies, they are able to do what they like and achieve their self-actualization. That's more important than getting rich. They thank China's open and reform policies for that.
My business is what I am, and it shows my value. My goal is to cultivate the porcelain culture, not to get super rich. Without the opening and reform policy, I never would have been able to do what I'm doing now.
Mr. Huang's story may sound similar to 15 million other private entrepreneurs across the country. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about Mr. Huang is that he has built his business in a small town in Hunan, which is an agricultural province. Most ambitious and talented people leave the province for brighter lives in Guangdong, Shanghai or Beijing. Mr. Huang's story, which is part of the broader success story of the province, proves that if it can happen in Hunan, it can happen anywhere in China. Zheng Yufeng reporting for BizChina 360.